I have spent enough of my life dedicated to an eternal god whose impatience couldn't be bothered to let a person get more than 80 years to devote unquestionable loyalty, who was egotistical enough to demand subservience while never uttering a single word, whose fragile leadership was demanded solely from his simplistic flock, who claimed, "You simply can't understand how complex he is in his silence." Is that all love is, or should be? Stories are a mess, and they're great, and they are so hard to stay in character. I started doing this because I say all the time, I love storytelling. I have a passion for it, I have an excitement for it, and I want to participate with stories in such unique ways. Let's talk about that. I'm just kind of winging it. Okay, so that's just a quick little dialogue I had thrown together because I was looking for some inspiration, and that one just poured out of me, and that was a fun one to try and get into this character where I'm broody and angry and a little offended by the person I'm speaking with. And I've talked before about how there are so many people who say you just need to understand who your character is, or what is it that they say? Know who you're talking to, visualize who you're talking to. And I've talked about before how I don't know how to visualize a person I'm talking to, but I do feel my understanding of it, or like how I kind of perceive it, is I can catch the vibes of what I want to express. This one, when I wrote that, it was coming from a place of how can I show hurt, anger, frustration, but also kind of a degree of, I won't call it arrogance, but self inflation of that, kind of a just an angry demand. So I've been feeling really good lately about how I'm getting into characters. I've sent off some auditions that I felt like I nailed the character I was going for. Now, I don't know if it's the character they wanted. I don't know if they're going to hear that and say, this is going to match perfectly to our project. But I've listened to other voice actors, people who offer a lot of information in this industry, say things about it's not about the job, it's about knowing you can contribute to the story that the director or the writer or the industry is going for. And I have seen a lot of that be true. And I'm still learning, how can I influence my position, or like push my position forward in this industry with that in mind. And it's been exhausting. I've talked so much about that because this is exhausting. This is a lot of promoting myself, pushing out there, reaching out to complete strangers, which is not something I'm super comfortable with, but I'm getting more comfortable as I go, because it's not about, none of this is about, I want to be the best voice actor in the world. I step into this myself with just this mental perspective I'm shifting more into and appreciating more of. I just want to help tell stories, whatever that might be. When I reach out to people on LinkedIn, I usually have some sort of introduction that I never send an invite without an introduction. That's super important in my mind. For me, that's just what makes sense. It gives you the option to send a message with your invite. I always send a message. I kind of just keep a running invitation that I'll always do. With LinkedIn, it's one of my primary ways of connecting with these complete strangers, but I kind of formed, you can always send a message when you send an invite, so I do. I send a message alongside it. I am of the personal belief that if you're gonna send an invite, send a message alongside it, but that's just what I've been doing. I usually say something, kind of this little conglomeration of just thoughts about how storytelling is my thing. And I usually say, hey, person, how's the thing you're doing at that company going? I'm always looking to expand my connections here and to bump shoulders with creatives, see some awesome projects, and be a resource if anyone needs it. I do voiceovers, but my passion is storytelling. That has been kind of my go-to message every single time I send out a LinkedIn invite, depending on what they're doing. I started doing that and realized I need to lean harder into that storytelling element. What does that mean for their industry? What does that mean for their thing? Maybe I'm reaching out to somebody about an e-learning thing. Well, as the storyteller there, I'm telling it from the perspective of the trainer or the narrative. If it's an explainer, who is that character? What's the vibe I want to put out in that? So it's been a lot of fun meeting new people and genuinely seeing their projects pop up on my feed now. It's been really, really cool and given me a lot of insight into what people are doing, what is booking, what is somebody's voicing the things they're putting out there, and it's just impressive. I want to contribute to those stories. I want to be that storyteller and find ways and opportunities. There's been so many cool things that I get to see doing this, and one of the recent ones, or like I said earlier, I have been feeling really good about how I step into some of these characters that are more um performative than what you might think a commercial should be or a e-learning or a promotional thing. The character I'm stepping into, I've been feeling just top notch about that. And that's something I want to lean into more. I want to feel, I should feel with every single audition I send out, I should be at my peak performance. And I'm working on that. I'm doing that more. But this year, I think what's going to be on the horizon is me getting specific coaching and specific mentorship from people, people who are in this industry who know what they're doing. I got to sit in on a workshop with a incredibly just prolific character in the voiceover world, J. Michael Collins, and something that he said that really is sitting in me now and I'm realizing is that, like, he is somebody who is at the top of his game. He is well known. He's got a hand in so many different pots. He rocks conferences and builds them and runs a whole just kingdom of a business, honestly. And he was saying in this little workshop how he is in a place where people know him. He's able to sort of sustain his own work for a specific amount of time, but he is never going to be able to stop doing the grind, the introducing yourself, the looking for new clients, the reaching out to people. And it's something that I've talked about it before in this podcast, even of how I want to, I will lean more into the direct marketing, the reaching out to people, the reaching out to individuals who could use my services. And I recognize, and I have recognized, it's not like this is a new revelation for me, but I find it's important to discuss in this sort of format. I need guidance. The whole concept of this podcast has been winging it because that's all I can afford to do right now. But I want that guidance. I want mentors. I want coaches. I want people who are well versed in this industry to let me know what I need next or encourage me in a direction that could benefit my business. It's exhausting and it's fun and it's all the things, but I feel like that's just sort of life. My whole stepping into this has been storytelling, and I stepped into this to start with this I just what's the story I want to tell? What's the story I want my life to tell? I left my last place because that story of my life was not going in a direction that I could personally support. Moving away from what I was doing into this was me saying, I don't want this to be part of my story anymore. Genuinely, the perspectives, the things, the stance of my leadership there was a lot of things I just couldn't support anymore. So I made that choice to get into a better story for myself, something that feels more authentically me. And that's a big thing. That's been heavy. That's been exhausting because so much of my personal identity was, like I think a lot of us do, wrapped up in my last career. And I don't want that. And I'm not saying I want to shift my identity now into this career, but what I am saying is that the consistent that I'm going to be is myself. My performances, my characters, my narrations, I want them all to come from a place of authenticity. I'm not going to audition for something that I don't support on in a big sense. Obviously, there will be times and things that I will do that or voice for where I don't know the full scope of everything, and I always come from a place of ignorance in that, and when I learn, I change, I do different. This is a situation where I'm gonna step into things being authentically myself. I'm not gonna audition for something that I don't want the upfront of it to have my voice with it. But what's the story that you want to tell? I asked myself that more recently than prior when made the shift into this, but more recently I'm asking myself, what's the story you want to tell? What is the story of your life? What mattered, what didn't, and what will? I am trying to find a way to tell the story of my life through the work I'm doing, through the way I live, through the people I interact with, and I'm loving it because telling that story has given me some of the keys to unlock the barriers in my own mind. I'm getting in touch with emotional vulnerabilities that I haven't allowed myself to step fully into more. I am getting to the point where I'm just loving playing characters and getting out there. I watched La La Land last night. It was a random find on Netflix, and I was trying to kill time, so I was like, sure, I'll watch this. I'd never seen it before, but the standout thing in the story to me, albeit it was a fine enough film, it was great, was the chasing of the dreams of our two main characters. Not so much about the relationship. It was sweet, it was nice, whatever, but the chasing of the dreams and the amount of pain, the amount of exhaustion, and the amount of joy and laughter and fun that was there in chasing that dream. Incredibly hard, but also incredibly fun. And the kinda crux of this movie was the moment when that dream was no longer part of the story. The big bad or the shift, the narrative transition was the dream is no longer the thing. You're not gonna reach your dream, you got the insecurities that do fester up. I was watching it, and that spoke volumes to me. That spoke volumes to me because it was just an entire story about chase your dreams, and it's going to be hard, and you may make it, you may not, but what's the story you wanna tell? This is me digesting out loud a bit. I know I'm sure there are people way more versed in the movie who have seen it years ago when it came out. I didn't watch it back then because it just didn't appeal to me at the time, but now I'm trying to ingest tons of content, movies, acting, and anyway, I am leaning into what's the story I want to tell. I want it to be a story of somebody who was authentically themselves while they chased after their dreams, and the dreams they chased after told the story that is worth telling, that participated in other people's stories. I love fading into the background. I like getting into a gathering and fading into the background to allow other people to shine. I love telling stories so someone, something, some stuff can shine brighter than me. I love that. That is how I approach storytelling. That is I want to help push that story along so somebody else gets all that spotlight. And that's kind of been my where I'm starting to understand my participation in all of this is not to be the star. I don't want to be a star, but I do want to help push stories forward. I do want to help others shine. And that's what I'm going to lean into a little more too. I'm leaning into a lot this year, if you couldn't tell based on my last episodes of this year so far. It's just because it's all so scary. It really is. Like, I am constantly scared every single day doing this, making the choice to do this. And my wife is so gracious and has been working her butt off lately so I can continue to chase this dream. And she's part of this story too. So, yeah, we're going to step forward in this story and make sure that we tell it the way we think it deserves to be told. I don't have a big wrap up thought on today's episode. It's one of those days where I just needed to ramble some things out, and this was just a format for me to have to do it. This has been such a great outlet for me. One, for creativity, yes, but also to process what's going on in my mind right now. Forcing myself to do this is something I don't offer myself the space to do this enough, and I want to offer it more. I want to get better at my conversational talking. I want to lean more into this sort of just flat vocal tonations that I have right now. And I want to do it in a way that keeps me honest with it, keeps me doing it. Like this, I feel a responsibility to keep doing it. And I still get excitement and a lot of joy out of doing this, but I do feel a responsibility to get in here, process my thoughts, and continue to live out loud. I'd love for you to find ways to live out loud with me. I recently created, an Instagram. Oh, I had gotten rid of social media years ago because I just didn't think I needed it. I didn't want it. I wanted to live more quietly than I had been, but now I'm living out loud again. So, hey, I've got an Instagram. You can find me there at Heartblam. Heartblam, I think, is going to become it's been my socials for years, like the things I would use for social. That's my Twitch handle. I got to figure out how to switch my Twitter back over to that, but I haven't been on Twitter for a while because it got weird. But Heartblam is going to be that going forward, and you can find me on Instagram. I share kooky, dumb stuff, a lot of my own TikToks actually right now, but I'm going to keep expanding on that, and I'm going to share snippets of this podcast there. I'm going to share just updates on my life, so feel free to follow me there if you want. If not, live your life. I'm not here to tell you how to do that. I'm here to ramble and be hopefully some kind of charming where you're like, that guy, he's cool. I'm not cool. Anyway, bye.